Well, jeepers! You're listening to Smash or Pass.
Hey everyone, welcome to another video on the JayBee
and
Milly channel. Today we are on to episode 2 of Velma, which is the Candy Woman. Am I right?
Yeah, so in this episode we are going to see if the Candy Woman can. But can she? I guess we're going to find out. So we haven't really done a plot summary for any of these so far. And I guess maybe it's probably good that way because...
Yeah, I kind of am enjoying it a bit more.
We react.
Okay, so... let's get into this episode. It starts off... it starts off kind of... You can tell me I'm wrong on that, I just wasn't watching episode 1 properly. But I think it starts off by throwing a few new concepts out there. So it kind of shows a flash to Daphne hiding money. I think it's just very much like character setting a little bit, really, and setting up different kind of plots and premises. Would you agree?
I've no clue what you're on about, I'll be honest. But maybe you paid attention to like things that are a bit more like meaningful than me, like Daphne hiding money, because I do recall that being part of it, but I don't remember seeing it, so I may have missed that. But I had this episode starting with the advert. You know, Jones Gentleman Accessories.
Oh!
Without your ascot, you're naked.
I think you're thinking of what's after the titles. I was thinking on what was before. So, like, you see Fred get taken out of his house, which I don't think fully happened in the last episode.
Yeah.
So Fred gets taken out of his house. His robe blows open, and there's another joke about kind of his development.
With my big old
Then you get some character development for Daphne because she's hiding money. You see half of a BFF necklace. Cut to Velma. There's a bag with a fish in it. Don't really know why. And like the other half of the BFF necklace. We never see much for Shaggy. I think his purpose in this is just to simp over Velma, quite frankly. And that kind of, for me, is pre-introduction.
Yes, it's weird. I think sometimes... Do they say things like previously on, then they show us new things?
Yeah, I think so. I think this previously on shows you one still and then develops new things. I don't know if it does it always.
Maybe.
But certainly for this episode. And it kind of caught me a little bit off guard because I was a little bit like, wait, have we skipped an episode here? Are we on the right thing? Do you know what I mean?
I don't even know why they do that, to be honest, because I knew it was episode 2, but then at the same time, like, it even confused me back in the day. I don't know why I'm bringing it up, but just the point of previously ons don't really make that much sense to me on something that's streaming. You know, because, like, if you binge watch it, like, it's all going to be there anyway. But I don't know.
A couple of reasons perhaps why, though. It's the first Scooby thing other than Mystery Incorporated where the story links together. So they may feel like they need to accommodate that. Don't know, just throwing possibilities out there. But also, my other kind of theory about that, sorry to keep interrupting you, but that in this, I think you get an episode about the mystery and then an episode of character development and then an episode about the mystery. So they sometimes need to flash back to remind you that there is a mystery because they've avoided the fact that there is a mystery themselves a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that they do, which is like, it is stuff that you'd have more in a kids program, like a lot of hand-holding in something that's supposedly for adults. So I don't really know, like, it confuses me with a lot of these. Like, even the previously ons, it shows us things that, because I don't think there's been much story so far or much character development. I think you've been a bit nice calling it character development.
Oh, I don't mean episode 1. Clearly no,
Jesus.
But we'll get into it.
Okay, don't interrupt me because you know what I mean. You could miss something. But like the thing is, it's like I think we should remember that, or we should know that, and I just don't understand why it's reminding us of that. Like, I kind of feel like the best place to start would have been, for me personally, that advert, because I think with the advert, for all it was kind of stupid, I feel like it sets up the tone of the world nicely. It almost reminded me a bit of WandaVision. Like, in every WandaVision episode of that era, it gave us something that was a parody on that. So an old, 60s advert that was maybe a bit sexist. Then we had a 70s advert that had like jump cuts, bombastic music, like all things of that era. And I don't think it was as good here because there wasn't any era to play off. It wasn't a parody of any particular thing, but it definitely set up the tone of the humour that they were going for quite well. Now, whether that's good or bad humour is here nor there, but I think it was a good way to set it up. And I actually liked the advert, I think the music was good, I think it was framed well, it was just maybe what it led into that wasn't so good, but I like some things early on in this episode.
For me, that was the funniest part of the series so far, because I think they think they've had to go to adult humour to make it funny. Whereas just these little calls to the original series is what I'm finding amusing. Like, I thought that was really quite nice. And I think because it's like the Jones family as well, and I think we've spoken to a couple of people in interviews about how, and you know, in the series as well, about how ascots, even at the time, were outdated. It had kind of just come in and didn't last long and was going out of fashion as Scooby was initially released. So it kind of just was a little bit of a reason of, this is why Fred always wears one. Do you know what I mean? Why it's so iconic to him, like the family business thing. I don't know, I enjoyed that little reference.
Yeah, I think it was interesting. It was definitely, because I feel like it was without the weight of all the stuff that the series was trying to commentate on. It was just a good scene. And I think it was because there was no pressure to make a snarky joke about this or a comment about that. It was just self-contained. But the story, now where do you then have it? Because the first thing I've got down is about Velma's dad being announced as Fred's lawyer.
Yeah, that's what I've got as the start of it as well.
See, that's one of the things that I was saying, where it's meant to be for an adult audience, not kids, right? So say if you're a kid watching Scooby Doo, you can forgive stuff like, you know, coincidence, like there's a talking dog, you know, like characters jump into each other, like it's all very convenient, but you can see why, because it's for kids, it's for families, whereas this, you'd imagine, what, the rating, I don't know the rating for adult animation, I assume 17 plus, but it's like, I don't know how seriously they want us to take this world, because even though we're law students, I don't think it would take a law student to figure out that there's no way Velma's dad would be able to represent the person that his own daughter caught. Like, that's a complete conflict of interest. And if it was any other show, in terms of like a Scooby thing, like a Be Cool, fine, it's funny, it's just entertainment. But this, if they're trying to give us a serious story, and I don't know, it just...
Let's not even touch upon the fact that he bribes her with $500 to give evidence.
It's a very bizarre world that we're in, and a very inconsistent world, because we'll get onto this, but there's stuff in later episodes where someone gets really badly hurt, someone got really badly hurt at the last episode, and then the killer's also hurting someone, so it's like, well, like, where's the line? What is this world telling us? I don't mind a world like this where we can make up some legal law for entertainment. Really, I don't. And I think even a show like, what, Daredevil took some liberties and stuff. Like every law, you know, the Legal YouTube channel.
Yeah, his channel's funny. I like that.
Point out stuff from like Daredevil, like, oh, there's no way that in a, you know, they could get this close to the jury and stuff like that. But if it's set up in that world and it's framed a certain way, it can work. Whereas this is like, okay, serial killer, that's bad, but then we're just gonna bribe people to go on the stand. It's like, I don't know.
I mean, there certainly is a lot of legal inconsistencies, let's say, because the scene after that is Velma approaching Daphne to get her mum's missing file. And again, that's very much like, is that possible? Gonna say not.
No, because where would Daphne get it? Because I know that her parents are the police people, but at the same time, isn't there like a due process, like it's filed away, it's confidential, or something, or sometimes isn't it public record? I'm sure you can request files on people. Isn't there a thing where you can you can call up X amount of people and request whatever files they have on you, and they have to give it to you? And I know she isn't her mum, but like, it's next of kin, right? The dad could get it.
I think there's something along those lines, especially because it's a closed file. Like, she was just, like, she says it's a closed file.
Yeah, and even, I've watched YouTube channels that are dedicated to murders, and it's a bit grim, but it's like, you know, like the top 5 missing people, and even those people, they can call up police departments and request access to files, so I think there is a way that they could have done this, but again, it's just a bit of a mess. Like, I feel like this doesn't even do a good job at setting up the world that episode 1 set up. So, I don't know, it's just kind of like, whatever the writers need to happen is what happens because the writers say it should.
Yeah, there's certainly very few pragmatics. One thing, again, that kind of provided me with a little burst of joy, all of which seems to be coming from the Jones family at the minute is, after that, the next scene is Velma's dad meets with Fred and his parents to discuss the case, and we hear the wonderful voice that is Frank Welker.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I think that there's a whole, not glorification of Frank Welker, because he is good, but I feel like people are too easy to use Frank Welker as a symbol for Scooby Doo. Like the amount of comments that you'd get from, oh, I bet Frank Welker was forced to do this, contractually forced. You know, I bet they told him it was something else and then used his voice without his permission. And it's like, no, I really don't think so. I mean, I hope he was well paid for it, because he deserves to be well paid, because he's a really good, talented guy. But, like, I really refuse to believe that the show forced Frank Welker to do this. I think he just took it to take it, and I think that's the only thing I'm going to say about that. Like, and I think he does a good job with what he's been given. But I do have an issue with people going, oh, he was obviously forced to do this. Like, I don't think that's the case. And even you can assimilate Frank Welker as being the disapproving eye in the show, because the way Fred's acting, Fred's dad's like, oh, this is embarrassing, I can't believe it's happening. You can use it like that. And maybe the show would have even have been smart to use Frank Welker in more of that role. It maybe made him a classmate that was kind of disapproving of what was going on. Maybe you could lean into that a bit more for the purist's sake. I don't think they should have, but it could have been an option. But I think it's nice. And you can really tell his range here, because I don't recognise him as fully Fred here. But even, I think he's almost doing a half Scooby sometimes, because he's doing like a little growl. Like a little gruff growl.
I disagree. I think it's like his Fred voice, but
you reckon?
An age up. It's got a little more kind of gravel to it, a little more depth, which kind of inspires me a little bit. Completely going off on a different tangent here, but like when the time comes that they have to appoint a new Fred voice and everything like that, I would quite like to see an episode where in the first episode of the new Fred voice, he plays Fred's dad. Just kind of like that passing the torch episode.
I mean, they have
because Fred's dad's voice is really good. I like it.
They have to do that. Like, they always do the passing of the torch thing, like Casey Kasem, Shaggy's dad. And with this, I don't know, like, people are always like with these projects, instead of like changing characters, people that we know, make a different story with unique characters. Now, do you think that the community, that on the online space, would have accepted these characters more if, say, this old version of, Fred was our Fred, voiced by Frank Welker, but older, and he had a son, Fred Jr., and I know it's kind of like, what? So Fred Jr. goes to a school in Crystal Cove where coincidentally there's a Velma that wears orange, coincidentally there's a Daphne that wears purple. Obviously, there's a lot of, coincidence that just wouldn't happen. But, I don't know, like, I think that they could have, and probably should have, framed it as, this is what would happen if an adult version of Fred that we know moves somewhere. And different characters were popping up. You know what I mean? Like, just different.
I kind of disagree. I'd say...
Well, I'm not saying...
No.
What are you disagreeing with?
I'm
saying...
No, like, if that was a statement, like, that the community would prefer that, I was saying I don't think they would prefer that in that... I think, if anything, at least the idea of the fact that Shaggy may have some connection to drugs was already put out into the universe. The kind of prospect of... I know in one episode, I think is it this episode is when they first, go to explore Velma's sexuality and things like that. All concepts that have already been put out into the universe. So it's not like they're coming up with these mad theories from nowhere. Whereas I think if it were to say this is the Children of Mystery Inc., I almost think that it would seem more insulting to purists, because it's kind of like... like them saying that this is what they'd be like as parents, that
the end of the time,
that like Fred would be capable of raising a spoilt bratty child, and that
but then again, it happens a lot. Like, Tom Hanks, one of the most beloved actors in Hollywood, voice of Woody, in so many things, And doesn't he have a son that's doing drugs? He's in like sorority houses. I mean, our Fred is lovable. He deserves to be successful. But with success, if say you become a millionaire through hard work and working well, your kid, not even if you mess up, just by virtue of being the son of a millionaire, it could easily get you down a wrong path, especially because they're in high school. Imagine in high school, your dad's a millionaire. Yeah, I don't think I would blame them for being a bit
It's
bizarre.
Across the board. Like, if they had one kid that was decent, fine. But these are literally like...
Oh, see, that's a good point.
Like, you have Fred that's this spoilt brat.
Do any of them have siblings? I guess Velma's got a little... I think giving one of them siblings... I'm not saying, like, oh, more characters would make this show infinitely better, but I would have actually liked to have seen one of them interact with a sibling figure, now that I think about it. But I'm just saying, like, if I was to try and do... And I think it's more not like the drugs, the lesbian, but more the race swap quote aspect. You know, it's like Scooby Doo Generations, the son of Shaggy and Crystal would be half brown or, you know, light skin type thing. I don't know. I'm just thinking, because I think a Scooby Doo Generations could work, and with Frank Welker literally being Fred's dad, it kind of got me thinking.
No, it's a good thought process to have, and I think certainly... Like I said, as Frank Welker's last episode, I almost want to see that type of generational shift. But I don't think it would work here. And not because it's a bad concept, but just because the characters are so unlikable. Like, not a single one of them is a good person in any regard, really. Fred is the most spoiled, ignorant person on planet Earth. Perfectly suited next to Velma, who is... Again, the most self-centered imaginable person here. So bad-tempered, very arrogant. Daphne's a drug dealer. Shaggy is the closest we have to something that is on the trajectory that you'd hope for. But even then, he has zero real self-respect, at least till about episode 5 or 6. I just think that it would kind of anger people a bit more to see that not one of Mystery Inc. could raise their children right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I guess in that case, you would keep Daphne as the daughter of the 2 police women and stuff like that. So it wouldn't be all the characters of Mystery Inc. had bad kids. Just, I guess Fred's son's on a learning path, because obviously you don't have. Actually, Lamont looks a bit like Shaggy. That's Norval's dad. So maybe, but he's not really. But I don't know. I get what you're saying. So there's some hints. You've got accessories for women shouted out, which, hey, they cater to women, so that links onto the glasses later. When Fred's dad's like, he's the future CEO, the mum's like, is he though? So there's some hints at the eventual conclusion that I didn't pick up on the first time, but it doesn't really say much. We get that Rogering reference, which I guess is maybe amusing to people in the UK. I didn't find it too amusing. I think it's because I had very foreign parents. I didn't know what a Rogering was until doing research. I wasn't Googling Rogering, but just Easter
I wouldn't
eggs.
recommend doing that.
Did you know what Rogering was?
I could take a good guess. It certainly sounds like there's certain context that you could drop that in.
Yeah, well, I see. I kind of like references like that where they know that they're going up to a primarily American audience. I kind of like some stuff that's not immediately crass. It's more you have to look into it. In Avengers, Loki calls Black Widow a quim. Don't research what that was if you're under a certain age, but just stuff like that you can really? That's what that means? But yeah, here's my main issue with this episode. We're introduced to this Candy Man or Candy Woman, and it's when we get drug dealer Daphne. Now, any other change that I like, that I can stomach them with these characters, and it's not like I'm this on my high horse. Drugs are evil, drugs are bad. Anyone who deals drugs is devil spawn. But it's why the heck is Daphne dealing drugs? Any version of Daphne, I don't see dealing drugs. And here's the thing, Daphne is stereotypically the pretty one. Yeah? Now, if you're...
God, this better not be going where I think
No,
it is.
but that's the thing. If you're going to be edgy, I can see her being a hooker. Not saying that's good, but if you're going to be edgy, that's how she can make money. Or an OnlyFans, that's modern, right? If you're going to make her do something, I guess that's seen as a bit controversial to make money, maybe that. Or even just any type of thing. Like her room we see later, she could sell stuff, you know. I mean, she could work, right? Like, she seems capable. She's good at fighting. Like, maybe even play off that 2002 version that Daphne's a fighter. Put her in one of these underground fight clubs. Like, there's so many things that I can see them going down. And it's like, drug dealing seems to be the bottom of the list. Like, why is she dealing drugs?
I think it's more a refreshing thing that it's not Shaggy. They wanted to have it in there. And I think it's later in this episode... Shaggy sees a group of people that watch his channel and is like, oh, it's just a bunch of stones. It's kind of like for it not to be Shaggy that's the one affiliated with drugs to kind of get that contrast.
It's just weird because the Daphne we know has either got rich parents, so I can see her doing drugs 1,000,000%, but dealing? I don't know. I really have an issue with Daphne being a drug dealer in this because it just... And they try and give us a bit of emotional motivation, right? Like, she's saving money to find her biological parents. Now, like, I'm adopted, but I don't care. But I know, like, someone like my sister, this is some context, being an adopted kid can actually mess you up in a way that you become obsessed about finding your biological parents. So, I sympathise with Daphne from an aspect where, yes, stuff like this happens all the time. People want to find their biological parents 1,000,000%. But, like, say we've, you know, had instances where we've been like, oh my gosh, like, and this is like, I'm just dumbing this down. But say a movie's coming out in 2 days. We want to go and see it. There's XYZ we can sell. Yeah. You know, like, how does one even get into drug dealing? Like, I need money now. I would love 100 quid. How do I go out and be a drug dealer? I wouldn't know where to start. You know, like, go on Facebook, like, hey, anyone got any weed I can sell? Like, but then I'm gonna have to buy the weed. I don't have money to buy the weed. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe become very protective of Daphne's character. I just don't know why she's a drug dealer. I really don't.
I don't think if it was Velma, you'd get this offended. It is, I think, very much you protecting Daphne in a way. I can kind of a little bit see where it comes from. She wants money, but she wants to keep her status, so she doesn't want to have to spend all her time at work. She's the popular girl. She doesn't want to kind of touch on that image. At the same time, I guess things like OnlyFans and other things that you suggested come at a price of the publicness of that. Like, imagine her having to go back into school when that's what she's been doing.
Or could she be an influencer? Like, she could get hella followers on Facebook, sponsorships.
That takes time. She'd have to build up that following. So it would take time, whereas this would probably just be... And again, they're not going to be expecting you to deep it this much.
Oh, no, I don't know. She's clever as well. Like, she spends an evening with Fred's mum, and she's, you know, bumped up in the ranks. Like, I'm not saying, oh, she's an attractive girl, the only way she can make money is OnlyFans. I'm just saying, if we're on that drug dealer line, if we're going to make someone do something a bit out of the ordinary to make money, and here's the thing, right? OnlyFans Daphne I could get behind, in that it's her body, she can do what she wants, she's making money, right? Like, what does it hurt her to have an OnlyFans? What does it hurt the world for her to have an OnlyFans?
JayBee, I think you're just resonating the stuff you want to see right now.
No, because here's the thing. She would be the only victim of that, potentially, right? Unless she's scamming people. But drug dealing, like, and I'm not saying this is a show we could take seriously, but drug dealing, to be a drug dealer, I feel like there is an element of you're harming other people, potentially. Like, we see every day, drugs do ruin people's lives. Maybe some people can take it, but drugs have ruined jobs, careers, families, lives. If Daphne is the one selling these drugs to people, I just don't see how we can get behind her as a character or a potential hero in maybe not just this season but season 2. Like, I would like her to do something that's a bit dodgy but victimless. I think what she's doing isn't victimless, so I can't get behind her.
I'm going to say these opinions are all coming from you because it's Daphne. I think I think you're seeing this and clinging to it because it's Daphne. Whereas, as you said not 10 minutes ago, this series does what it wants to achieve its end goal. This isn't about Daphne rebelling. This is about something that she can bring Velma in on that then leads to Velma seeing her dad when she goes to drug deal to him. And then she's getting the money to get the file. She's in the courtroom. She's a witness for Fred. They're just looking at something that's going to further the plot. Say they went for your OnlyFans idea. What do you want it to be? That, like, she becomes Daphne's cameraman. Her dad becomes a subscriber to Daphne's OnlyFans. Maybe that's my issue. It's like,
the Velma show. A Mystery Inc. show with Daphne OnlyFans maybe makes more sense. It's because it only confines to Velma. Like, why does Velma need to be remotely involved with that? If it's Daphne's story about finding her biological parents, to me personally, Velma doesn't need to be involved with it. And now, with what you're saying with things connecting, now let's think about it. What is the end goal? Daphne has sold drugs to get money. Okay, woohoo, now she can find her biological parents. None of the investigators can help her. She ends up falling into some hole and finding her parents. So ultimately, this was for nothing. So even her contained story is just, as you say, oh, now Velma sees her dad buying drugs. It's my issue is, don't do this to Daphne unless it's actually going to help the story that they're telling. I can back a subplot on Daphne finding her biological parents, but ultimately this is for nothing. She just falls in some hole in episode 4.
Yeah, but we're not thinking about episode 4, and neither were the creators. It seems with
they should have been if they're writing a series.
No, all of this is right. None of this seems well prepared, well written. We said this in episode 1. Like, Daphne got hit with a hockey thing, but that was forgotten about 30 seconds later. It's how they move the story forwards 30 seconds at a time. They are not living for the final episode. They are living for this episode. 30 seconds at a time seems how this was written. And so with that in mind, okay, say you're writing an episode, Velma has to owe Daphne something. She has to get money from Daphne. And it has to link back to her dad. So, in some form of bribery, agreement, settlement thing. So how do you get there?
Okay, but then drop it then. Like, say, oh, never mind, I don't care about my biological parents. Don't waste X amount of time with her falling into a hole.
Yeah, but we're not there yet. None of this is relevant yet.
Yeah, but the writers surely must have been thinking, let's plan all this season out.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem that way. Like we said,
yeah, but that's an issue. We're allowed to point out an issue that it doesn't make sense.
I agree with you. It's a huge issue. It's abominable writing. But at the same time, that's just how it is. 30 seconds at a time. That's how they're living.
But if it's just how it is, there's no point making a review on it. It's just how it is. Look, I feel in my heart, right? I could have written this series a lot better. That's what I'm saying.
Look, me, you, person next door, some random person on the internet who's only just finished their first, writing lesson could probably do this better. This isn't good. But this was never meant to be good. And, you can tell as we get into episode 3, it moves away from the mystery entirely. It becomes about character development. It's a complete stark contrast to episode 1. Episode 1 was there for the shock factor of, we're going to start this with naked women and 2 bugs on the floor together. That's how they start the episode. It was all about that shock factor. There wasn't any consideration to good writing here. It was very much almost like, how much can we piss people off? What's going to do that the most? What's going to get us talked about? Not even for the right reasons, but what's going to get the name Velma out there? And they did it.
No, I will defend the show a little bit in terms of everyone calls this show woke because I feel like that's the easiest thing to call something that has people of colour characters. But I genuinely don't think it is woke, because the Me Too joke, hashtag Me Too, like, what is woke in the tradition? It's all about, let's believe women, feminism, girl bossing. But a hashtag Me Too joke is kind of flying in the face of that. So, and obviously, like, just because it isn't woke doesn't mean it's good. But I'm saying that it's not woke because of that joke. And also, the Hitler joke, loads of people can get offended at a Hitler joke because obviously Hitler's despicable man in history and stuff. But to make a Hitler joke, I would say that that's very edgy as opposed to woke. And it's like, you know what I mean though? Like, they wouldn't do a Hitler joke if they wanted to be a woke show. So I don't think it is woke. It's not good. I think woke is the wrong word for it. But I don't know. I don't mind the Hitler Fred joke. Like, it wasn't masterful. But, I mean, if it was offensive to some people, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, anyone can be offended by anything. I think the woke thing to do would be to have a show that doesn't include any of that potential offences. And, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, maybe I can comment on that with a Jewish dad. I mean, I'm not a Jewish person myself. Like, I eat bacon like it's oxygen. But, I don't know. But that's what I'm going to say about that. I don't think it's a woke show. Definitely not. But yeah, so we get onto some sequences, like the chase sequence in the school.
That's something I enjoyed.
See, literally, in my notes, it's not a bad chase scene at all. I think the music is fine. Obviously, I would have preferred, a bit more like pop and stuff, because that's what I know from What's New Scooby Doo. But if they're going for this more kind of edgy vibe, I guess doing a fast, song works well for it. My only thing is if people, like, it's the rules of this universe that I'm trying to grasp. So there's people that get run over with their shopping cart, their legs get chopped off, and Daphne and Velma can fly through a brick wall like it's the Looney Tunes or something. So that's fine. But then I just don't understand, because if murder's bad in this world, then someone getting their foot chopped off in the school should be a big deal. And again, if people are mortal in this world, how can we see Daphne and Velma not sustaining any injuries or anything from that brick wall getting burst through? So I like the scene for what it was, and maybe I can even go like, okay, some things happen in the Scooby Doo chase scene that isn't what would happen if it wasn't a chase scene. So, you know what I mean? Like, I can get it from that point of view.
You're going to hate me for drawing this parallel.
Oh.
But you know that 2002 chase scene where there's that baggage cart that Scooby's pushing? Is it Daphne and someone else falls onto it and then they shoot through the window?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why I got a call back to that.
Yeah, but I guess my point is, you can shoot through a window and not get too badly hurt.
You cannot go through a brick wall.
You can't go through a brick wall. And I'm not saying it would necessarily hurt you. Obviously, we know it would, but the force that would need, it's just, I think the physics is kind of off and I can't connect with it. Because say, for instance, there was a scene where the killer pushed a character we liked. Maybe there isn't one. But say there's a character we liked, the killer pushed them through a brick wall after this scene. Are we meant to go, that's funny, like, they escaped? Or are we meant to go, oh no, that character we like, are they okay? Like, you know what I mean? There's just so much that doesn't connect with it, that I can't even be invested emotionally in what we have. But again, maybe that's not what they're going for.
Okay. So at this point, we're pretty much at the end of the episode. Daphne and Velma kind of enjoyed hanging out together that day. Daphne brings Velma the cold case file. Velma has a hallucination, which Daphne snaps her out of by kissing her.
So a lot of things I don't like about this. We say Daphne and Velma had fun spending time with each other. Now, do you remember English literature at school?
I didn't do English literature.
Not even at GCSE?
Nope.
It wasn't mandatory?
Nope.
What? Did you ever do English literature anything that involved highlighting a book and commentating on it?
We did like Of Mice and Men, but it wasn't that deep.
To stuff like that, right? Like, say, Slim, the owner of the ranch, when they mention him walking in with, presents, like, and in came Slim, Lenny was in awe that he was able to captivate the awe of all the people in the barn, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You can underline that. Slim is an authority figure. People respect Slim. People like Slim. Stuff like that, right?
Right.
Now, if that sequence happened in this show, Slim walks in. That's Slim. We all like Slim. He's well respected. Look at the way he stands like that. You can tell he's an authority figure, and that's all people talking as he enters the room. And so when Velma are like, maybe we are friends after all. Maybe we didn't have a bad time hanging out with each other. Or maybe that's because you shut people out from life. Like, they are telling us things through dialogue. What with the right scene, we could have gone, oh, so maybe that's because Velma shuts up. Like, what they're telling us, what we should be able to know by writing. So maybe long-winded comparison, but I don't know. You know what I mean? I just feel like when you're pointing out, look, audience, that means this means that.
Because we're not good enough at our job to have you know this without us telling you.
Like, is this adult animation or is this Dora the Explorer? You know what I mean?
It seems to be... If you take out, like, all the expletives, the sexual references and drug references, that kind of thing.
All the Rogering.
It's more junior than any Scooby Doo because it's
I think Mystery Pups would have been
this is how
better.
they're feeling. This is what Velma's thinking. Like, it's terrible.
They should have released this as the preschool series and released Mystery Pups as adult animation at this point. Like, because I just don't understand what all hand-holding is with this.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty terrible. And then we end it with the post-credit scene of Fred in the jail cell.
And again, the thing is, right, and this is my hot take, I've ripped this show apart. I like Fred, you know. When Fred isn't being stupid, like, oh, cuddies and hoisties, I don't find that funny. But his serious line delivering, like, they call me the thief. What are you in for? Like, I like that. I like Fred. And it's not that I find him endearing, but I feel like in terms of comedic timing and what he's doing with the lines he's been given.
But the thing is,
I think he's doing okay.
Sorry, just to another interrupted you again. But it's like you were saying about the Velma's feeling like this now. It's kind of like if they'd have just had those little one-liners like, you're called thief, what are you in for? That shows his intelligence is low enough without the annoying rubbish like, hoisties, cutsies. Do you know what I mean? Like, we know he's stupid. We know his IQ is on the floor. Without you doing this annoying rubbish, it's embarrassing. It
is funny though, because I feel like with the narrative of the show, Fred was put in as heterosexual, rich, white male. He's meant to be the unlikable one, the villain, the butt of the jokes. But I think so far he's my favourite character.
Velma's the least likeable character in her own show.
She massively is, and it's kind of funny, really.
I would say Norval's my favourite. I feel so sorry for him. I wish, like, they'd let him have an ounce of self-respect. I think it's so unnecessary. No one's going to simp for Velma, let's be real, especially not this interpretation.
Maybe if it was Linda Cardellini Velma, you know, who's your mummy, you are, but, like, Mindy Kaling Velma isn't mummy. Mindy Kaling Velma's, like, daddy that put his ciggies out on me, like, you know what I mean?
You cannot say that, oh my god.
Like, she's the opposite of mummy. She's... I don't know what she is. She's... okay, spoiler alert, this one was a big pass for me. This was trash. I'm not going to watch this one again. I think it was bad. It was, like, really, really bad. Here's the thing. I thought it was a decent SH1T show. Well, I don't really need to say that, but it was a decent that show to watch in terms of episode 2. But it just, there wasn't one thing I liked about this episode, except maybe some of Fred's lines.
One question.
Oh, yeah.
What does this episode have to do with the mystery?
Zilch.
It's a nothing episode.
No point.
You could have got rid of this episode and we wouldn't have had the rest of the series affected in the slightest because what's it achieved? Fred's in jail. We already knew that. Velma's mum's gone missing and she wants to find her. We know that. It's kind of not moved. Daphne's a drug dealer, but I feel like we don't touch upon that much from this point onwards, really. Could be wrong.
I would like to interview the person that wrote this to tell them that they don't deserve a job.
You can't do that.
No, like...
My name's on this show as well, JayBee. Think about the repercussions,
but I said
please.
that. I said that. You know what I mean? It was me. It was my voice. But I just feel like if you write something like this, I don't know how you're getting employment. You know what I mean?
No, I'm not even saying that it's the writer's fault. It's whoever's right at the top that's like, this is the show I want to do. This is the story. You all go and do that for me. It's them twits at the top that's the issue.
I don't know, but people have been saying the same thing about... I don't know, maybe you're right. Because I guess in a cohesive, semi-cohesive story, there's not room for individualism.
You know when you go to the cinema and just before it starts, you get that black screen with some signatures on it of we are the people that approve this movie. It's the people that would have signed out for this that don't deserve a job.
Yeah, and I can't even take the high horse of like, oh yeah, but the writers have the self-respect to not do it, but difficult times.
Look,
animation, stuff's being cancelled left, right and centre. If I get an animation job that's semi-safe, I guess you take it. It's just, I would request that my name is left out of this episode.
If someone tells me they're going to pay me 10 grand to write them a shit show, I'm going to go and do it. Because I want 10 grand.
Easy money,
just because
right?
somebody wrote this doesn't make them the person at fault. It's the person at the top that signed it off and said, here you go, Warner Brothers, you can have this. Or here you go, HBO Max, this one's all yours now.
I just feel
it's them that's the problem.
My parents' little shih tzu, right? If I dunked him on this keyboard in front of us, he could have written a better episode.
It is terrible. Not just a better episode, a better show. There's nothing other than the fact that I'm enjoying talking to you about it.
I will say though, this was always one of my least favourites, so I'll say that much. It's definitely the bottom of a barrel. Maybe there's a top. We're not there yet. But yeah, this was always the bottom of the barrel for me.
But it's always been a barrel that you just want to get over with and take it and dump it in the ocean when it's done.
But it's fun to talk about. It's fun to talk about, and I think it's good. I think it's good. But again, like I want to say, if you do like this episode, yeah, good on you. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, the point of this show is to split opinion. That's why they did it, right?
Like it's so polarizing. I'm sure that someone really, really loved this.
We should bring them on this.
And I think that's the beauty of something like this in a way, because it really isn't pandering. It's so one way that for some people viciously hate it, there has to be the other side of that coin. You know, there just has to be. But I don't know. Like, I've met people that absolutely hate season 1 of Daredevil. I personally think it's one of the better, seasons of television that I've watched. So there's always going to be opinions. I watched this show, and they said that Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was their worst MCU movie. I understand not putting it in your top 5, but I wouldn't put it worse. But, people have different opinions. So if you do like this episode, feel free to comment below what you like about it, because I think that'd be an interesting read. And obviously, if you get attacked in the comments, I'll defend you, because opinions and whatnot. But yeah, whatever. So, I've passed this. Milly, did you pass?
Yes.
The candy woman? Yeah, it's a rough one. But next time we have Velma Kai. We'll see. So if you do want to see that, please like, comment, and subscribe.
JayBee and Milly.